As always, huge shout outs to Abdullah, Titan, Palms, Tyler, Cozy, Rare Omen, JPK, Supreme, Uncle, AG Snipes, and AG Twitch, and Snoot for all the donos. Huge shout out to you guys. Thank you for supporting me so much. And also, Omega shout out to our channel MVPs, Tyler and Abdullah with the 50 bombs. I greatly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to me. You guys kill it with my video. To be any more thankful, thank you guys so much for all the support. Shout out to you guys and also our growing community. And yeah, let's get to the video, guys. Oh, it's your boy Beastly. We got a little interesting video for you guys to look at here. As you guys can see, exclusive ace. Love this guy's content. If you don't know who he is, he does a very in-depth breakdown of data, specifically of COD. And recently, he was the one who discovered, probably like a week or two ago, whenever it was, he discovered that you could go to the Activision website and withdraw your information, and they are now legally obligated to give you your information. Shout out to the UK for doing this, by the way. And I apologize in advance if I do sound worse or not like my normal self. I am very sick right now. I'm recording this with a cough drop in my mouth, so hopefully I don't cough and yak as much as I did in my previous video. But yeah, time waits for no man, and you guys need your content, so here I am. But yeah, Ace was going through this video, which I will have linked in the description below. He got info from other people's video, because you can only request your own information. And so, you know, however many people, 15, 20, 25, 100, however many people did it, they gave him their information. And this is the data that he's basically compiled. And at the spoiler alert, at the end of this video, he's going to ask for more data to kind of get more of an assumption. And the one thing that, you know, I'm not going to play the video. I'm going to show the graphs in the video. So if you want the full video without me yapping over it, I'll have it linked in the description, like I said. So don't worry, I'm not covering stuff up. If you guys don't believe me, go watch the video yourself. I'm not one of those YouTubers who hide my screen, so I'm Gucci. But either way, this graph is really, really, really interesting to me. And I'm going to go full screen just so you guys can see it a little better. This graph is essentially the skill graph of COD players. And what I find fascinating is that I assumed the graph was going to be between 0 and, like, pick a number, 0, 1,000, 0, 750, 0, 500, 0, and 100. You know, the actual numbers themselves on the graph don't really matter because everything's proportionate. But I didn't expect to see this graph and seeing negative numbers. And if you're wondering, Beastly, how do you get negative numbers? How do you have negative skill? Well, the answer, as you can see from this gentleman's numbers, I forget who in the video he says these might be his own numbers or whatever, but as you can see, this person starts off around a 0, drops down into hella negatives, goes back up to around 0, then drops a little bit, then goes back up, and then rinse and repeat. Here was a crazy outlier. Dude shot up to almost 300 skill, and then drop back down, and then, you know, been coasting since. So that thing that people have been complaining about, saying like, oh, you have a couple good games, and then you're going up against like fucking the Sweat Lords, and vice versa. You have some crazy games against some Sweat Lords where you do bad, then your next game is really easy. This, along with the other graphs, kind of prove this. Which, I mean, if you've played the CODs over the last like 5 years since basically 2019, you felt this. So it's cool that we actually have data and a graph that goes along with what we've been feeling. But this is not the most unique thing as why I'm even making this video. There's just a singular graph. But yeah, this kind of confirms more or less that when you have those games, and if you're curious, this is what it looks like over the course of, these are dates, time, games. This is a skill rating from 0 to 600. And this is what it looks like, a Modern Warfare 3 skill data. So in the video, Ace covers it, that Modern Warfare 3 skill data is very different from BO6 and I think he said, what, Vanguard? I forget what the other game you mentioned, but essentially, this skill data is a lot higher and lower for different games. And kind of implying that there's different skill thresholds for each game, which implies that the skill-based matchmaking is different for each game. How different, we actually don't know. But I would assume if there is tighter restrictions, it would be harder. And if there's loose restrictions, there would be lesser. But ultimately, we don't know. And we'll probably never know unless we get our hands on the actual algorithm itself. And we'll never have that happen. So, but this is just what it looks like. The high points are followed by low points. And then low points are followed by high points, and just rinse, repeat. Yeah, have a couple good games. Go against sweaty players. It drops. Have too many bad games, you do good, goes up, and then rinse, repeat. The up, down, roller coaster type of chart. Which, again, just confirms what we've been thinking, right? You didn't really have to tell us this existed, because if you've played COD, you know it has been. But this is, again, just a visual representation. Gets put in a high bracket lobby, does bad, drops drastically down here. They do overwhelmingly good down here, then it pivots, they go back up, and then it's just this roller coaster, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. The most synthetic, not natural matchmaking you could possibly have. It's kind of crazy. And then we get to this chart. And this is kind of the chart that made me make this video, or what inspired me to make this video, is aside from the obvious, ways to catch a 2Boxer / reverse booster / SBMM manipulator, there's like ways we do that, right? You guys watch my exposed video, or if you like watch other content creators like Call of Shame or Rick, yada yada yada. We break down the more gameplay stuff, but analytically speaking, we now have a way of catching a 2Boxer. And if you're curious, the way we can catch 2Boxers now are with their charts. Now, obviously, you can only request your own data. So this will never be public knowledge unless you make it public knowledge. But this section of the graph, as you can see, there is 0 to 300, actually goes higher, but the cap's at 400 here for this graph. But it goes from 0 to 400 for this graph. And as you can see down here, there's negatives. And maybe wondering to yourself, well, Beastly, what's the point of having a negative skill rating? The answer is, if you're below 0 and have a negative skill rating number, that means you are a really, really, really bad player. So theoretically, if the graph goes all the way up to, let's say, 600, right, between 0 and 600, that would also mean the negative is also true. So technically, the way you're looking at this graph is from 0 to 600. But what it should look like is from negative 600 to positive 600, and 0 would be the average. 0 would be the middle. So to like articulate that skill rating to like a KD, your 0 skill rating would be around a 1. That's average. So then your 1.2, which is slightly above average, that would be like 100, right? Whereas if you're slightly below average, that'd be 0.8, that'd be like negative 100, just to give you a verbal or a visual idea what I'm referring to. Does that mean that is the exact skill ratings? No, that is not. Those are not the exact numbers. That was just a hypothetical. Just, again, visualizing to explain this. In order for you to be down here, you have to be either slightly above average or slightly below average. And then when you get way down here, like this gentleman's doing, where you can see he is dipping way into the negatives, he was 2Boxing. So if a content creator wants to expose, they're not really exposed, but it gets called a 2Boxing cheating POS, there is now a 100% chance to basically clear your name. And that's to release your data. Obviously, don't release your name, your IP address, and like your address. Don't dox yourself. But everything else, the other data, you could release it and 100% verify whether you're a 2Boxer or not. So now there's no more of this shit where it's like, oh, I know you're 2Boxing because you start the game missing teammates. You play against people who are very bad at the game, and you drop 2, 3, 4, a billion nukes, right? Now there's a literal numerical way of seeing if you 2Box. And the other crazy part about this is that with how the ratings work, how the data works, is these 2Boxers like X-Pro Clown over there, and the other one, Seabass, and every other 2Boxing fraud, Bratters eventually, depending on when I'm recording this video, that exposed video may or may not be in the future, but all these 2Boxers, it's actually kind of crazy. Their skill rating, as you can see here, decays. And you may be wondering, how's that possible? So how the game works is your skill rating is 100% determined not by what you do, by who you beat. So whether you have a 0.5 KD or a 700 KD, it doesn't matter. It matters who you play and who you beat. So for example, on these reverse boosted gameplays that you can see right here on the graph, he was beating terrible opponents. So even though he was dunking on noobs and absolutely reverse boosting his brains out of, because the people he was playing was so bad, it didn't matter that he won the game, and it didn't matter what his KD was. They were so bad players. There was just such horrible competition that it dropped his skill rating. And if you're curious why the graph goes from like down to up to back to down again, back up, and then really down and then permanently up, the guy who got this data point says he stopped reverse boosting here. So this section right here is reverse boosted, not reverse boosted, reverse boosted, not reverse boosted, very reverse boosted, and then he stops. Now, if you guys don't know, there was a patch that they released like 2-ish months ago that quote unquote killed 2Boxing. It didn't. All it did was you couldn't join the bot account in progress. That's literally all it did. But you still can play with bots. And I don't mean bad players, right? There's a big difference between playing with your bad friends or playing with people in your chat or playing with randoms and playing with accounts that are specifically designed to have the worst KD possible, which is a 0.09, and the worst win-loss possible, which is 0.24. That is the lowest the stats will let you go. I've tested it. I cannot get any lower on my account. If you can get lower, let me know in a Twitter pic or something. But I cannot get on my reverse boosted experimental account that I made that video, a month and a half ago. I could not get my KD below 0.09, and I could not get my win-loss below 0.24. So there's a very distinct difference between playing with, bad friends or bad family members or people in your chat versus playing with literal accounts that are specifically designed to have the worst stats physically possible in the game and play with them. And the other funny thing is, again, because the competition this person was going against was so bad, even though they were winning and they were popping off with a crazy KD and they were winning all these games, it didn't matter because their competition was so bad, it was pulling their numbers down. Then obviously they stopped 2Boxing and just immediately shot to the moon. Just immediately shot to the moon. Which is crazy. It's really crazy that the game, first of all, the game records way too much data. I think it's insane. It's not just the obvious stats, right? Like win-loss, KD, those are obvious stats the game would track. But it's like tracking how accurate you are, how much you move around the map, how often you spend in the menus, right? What do you purchase? What do you buy? What do you not buy? What do you, when do you go to the store? It records so much data. It's insane. Like genuinely insane. It's kind of borderline scary. And so here you go. The individual who gave Ace the data on the graph, as you can see, he released more stuff, and more or less Ace was asking for his win-loss, score per minute, and KD. And as you can see, the first couple prestige where he was 2Boxing like a fucking crackhead, dude, in 7.5 and an 8.5, we're gonna round down, 8.5 and a 7.5 KD. His win-loss ratio was 2.29 and basically a 4.0. And then he stops 2Boxing, and his shit immediately drops. Goes to a 3.4, 4.46, 3.2, 4.1, 3. Yeah. You see, goes down. Also, his win-loss drastically goes down. And then his score per minute, you guessed it, also goes down. Now, you may be wondering, well, Beastly, he stopped 2Boxing. His stats clearly went down, but his stats didn't go down nearly enough as you thought it would. As it's mentioned up here, this data point is from early November, and he stopped around December 10th/24th. So this is only, what, a month and a half of data? So if he were to play more games over more time, following the trend of just his numbers going down, they would continue to go down. The other thing is, he's saying that he stopped 2Boxing. We can't verify that. I know this is going to sound like, an arbitrary point, but at the end of the day, the only thing that's true is the data, right? Whether someone does or doesn't 2Box is, basically hearsay. We're having faith that this individual who gave Ace the data isn't lying through their teeth. Now, whether they are or aren't, nobody really knows. But the other thing is, Ace and this individual thinks that 2Boxing is patched. Obviously, if you guys have watched any of my recent videos of exposed videos, it's not patched. The joining in progress on a bot account, that is patched. That's gone. But what people are now doing is basically what I call gang reverse boosting, where they play with a bunch of bot accounts. That way it's a bunch of players and not just one player. And the overall group skill rating is so low as a unit that you play against other, low unit skill ratings. So example, in the Paradox video, guy was having 3 main accounts with 3 bot accounts. And those 3 bot accounts were offsetting the main, leading to easier and easier games. And if you're someone like Seabass and you're a super shameless person, you can stack a bunch by yourself. There's really no rule how many one account can, like, how many, you know, bots one account can play with. And so if I had to guess, yeah, his numbers did go down when they quote unquote fixed 2-boxing. What really happened was he was still doing the old method of 2-boxing, which is why his numbers are still high. But it was far less effective because he wasn't playing with more bot accounts. The more bot accounts you play with, the easier the lobbies get. Essentially. So then we get to this point. So then Ace in the video decided, you know what? I want to take all of the KDs I can and pair them to their skill rating and make a graph. And again, this isn't like new information. It's just great that we can now use numbers and hard data to prove what we've been saying for years, right? There is a direct correlation, as you can see on the graph. It's an upward slope. Or I don't really say slope. It's an upward incline is a better way of me wording it. Where the worse your KD is, the worse your average skill rating is. The higher your KD is, the higher your average skill rating is. As you guys can see on the chart, it's a direct upward line. It's a direct upward incline. Meaning, theoretically, even if there is no chart here, if you this would keep going. So like he cuts it off here as like a 3 KD. But if you have a 4 KD, 5 KD, 10 KD, and the end of the graph wasn't 600 for your average skill rating, and let's say this kept going to like 1,000, the chart would continuously go up. So not just is there a direct correlation to how valuable your KD is, but there's a direct correlation to KD plus skill rating, which is, again, not new information if you've played the game over the last 5 years. But it's great to verify that all the things people have been saying, have been feeling, that's not really true data or something that's testable. Now we actually have data, which is sick. Lastly, if you do pull your data for Ace, or if you do pull your data, please give it to Ace. Ace is asking for more data to make a larger video for a more broad experiment. As you can see, most of these are done, I don't want to say small, but the larger sample size you do of an experiment, the more scientifically accurate it becomes. And so Ace is asking for more data. If you do pull your data and you're in my community, please go give it to Ace. I believe in the description of Ace's video right here, he has a new email specifically for giving your information. Please do not dox yourself, right? Ace wants all of his information anonymously. It doesn't matter if you're a great player or if you're a bad player. He just wants the data you have. So please, if you do this in my community, please don't dox yourself, right? When you get the information and put it in like an Excel sheet or whatever you want to do that, remove the personal stuff, remove your name, remove your address, remove your IP address, remove all the things that can like get you basically doxed. All Ace wants is your data, and I do too. I want to see what this looks like on a grand scale rather than like 25 to 50 individuals. I want to see what this looks like out of 1,000 people, out of 10,000 people. And I want like all different skill levels, right? I don't want just the average and above average doing this, right? If you're a bad player and you watch my content and you want to, see if you're a bad player, go pull your data. Now, obviously, the website does frequently crash, which is the reason why I haven't done it myself yet. But eventually I will get my data back and I will make that a whole separate video in the future. But yeah, this was a great video. I highly recommend it. If you want a more in-depth breakdown of his charts and his graphs, obviously go watch the video. I'll have it linked in the description. I do not own any of this product. I am just simply talking over his graphs. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. More or less, now there's a way of exposing people. And if they do release their data, you can very easily tell, as you can see on this graph. If you're playing a lot of games in the negative skill rating, you are 2-boxing. Especially if you can see on the rest of the graph, they are not in the negative skill rating. Boom, magically goes negative skill rating and then back up. So if you ever get called a 2-boxing reverse boosting piece of shit, you can just pop up your graph, and it's really simple now. So for anyone who gets falsely accused of 2-boxing, there's a direct way now you can defend yourself. But most people aren't going to do that because, again, most people are 2-boxing. And now that there's a 100% chance guaranteed way of seeing if you're 2-boxing, I bet you most of these popular streamers and content creators will never release their data. Or if they do release data, it's not going to be their own. They're going to get someone else's data, lie and say it's their own data, and then boom. But regardless, this was a great video. Highly recommend you watch it. I love exclusive Aces content. Go subscribe to him if you're from my channel. As always, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon, day, or every time you watch my content in the future. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Draw me a follow / sub on Twitch. I'd greatly appreciate it. Please, if you can, turn on that notification bell. Like 2 or 3% of my audience has that notification bell on. If you turn on the notifications, it will 100% chance guarantee my videos pop up in your feed and you can watch my content. And yeah, guys, I'll see you when I see you. Deuces.